Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's professional learning session. I'm Emily Sumner, and I'll be your host. Before we dive into the different approaches to using curriculum and materials with English learners, I'm going to review just a few quick tips to help the webinar run smoothly for you. The GoToWebinar platform does not have a group chat, but we do welcome your questions and feedback. Anything you send in, I will see and review. And we're going to be holding a short Q&A period at the end of the presentation. So you can send me your questions by locating the Q&A icon at the bottom of your control panel. When you click on that icon, you'll be able to type your question in and send it over to me. And like I said, we'll be holding a Q&A period at the end of the webinar. If you experience any technical difficulties during the presentation, please send me a note using that questions feature, and I'll do my best to resolve the problem for you. One thing you can do right now to help things run smoothly is to shut down all the other applications on your computer, which I know is really hard to do, but if you close Word, PowerPoint, any Acrobat applications that you have open, as well as any other internet browser tabs, that just ensures all of your computer and internet bandwidth goes to power GoToWebinar. And that can really smooth out any audio or video lags. If you do have lags or blips that last more than a second or two, close out of GoToWebinar and come right back in, and that usually resets the connection. We are recording today's session, so if you're not able to stay for the whole presentation, that's okay. We will send it out to you along with a link to the PowerPoint and other resources and an email tomorrow. That'll come out tomorrow afternoon, so keep an eye on your inbox. That email will also include your certificate of attendance, so definitely keep an eye out on your inbox. Sometimes those messages do go to spam or junk filters, so look there if you don't see it later tomorrow afternoon. All right, I think we're ready to get started. I am pleased to invite Brenda Adiva to join me. Hi, Brenda, how are you?
Hi, everyone, I'm good.
Great, well, it's always good to see you. Brenda is an educational consultant with Ballard & Tie, and she is going to be your instructor today. So I'm gonna go ahead and hand things over to you.
All right, well, thank you everyone for joining us today to talk about supplemental and comprehensive programs. Just to let you know, my name is now Brenda Adiva. If you have met me previous to this, I was Brenda Rosas or Brenda Huey Rosas. I got married in Hawaii over winter break, so that's the name change. Just a little bit about me. I actually have a bachelor's in Chinese. I speak 5 different languages, and I have a master's in English, teaching English to speakers of other languages. I've actually spent 15 years in secondary EL classrooms, always multi-level. It's kind of my passion. And sometimes I think I taught a little bit of single level, but mostly multi-level. I did a lot of curriculum and assessment for ELs, development as far as like writing, technical build, things like that. And I actually began using a blended learning approach for ELs in the classroom in 2009, where students had access to technology. I was projecting on the screen. They had paper. Sometimes they had everything out all at the same time. Today, I just wanted to go over our agenda first. So I wanted to share the philosophy of Ballard & Tie and just kind of go over what our programs are today. I really wanted to use this session as a time to show you supplemental and comprehensive programs that we have here in Ballard & Tie. But we're going to supply you with a sample for Frames for Fluency, Carousel, and Champion. So when you get a recording of this webinar, you're going to get downloads to try that Frames for Fluency lesson, the Carousel of Ideas lesson if you are doing K-5 and you want to look at a comprehensive program, and Champion of Ideas for 6 through 12 if you wanted to look at a comprehensive program for that age group. So this video is really, or this webinar is really going to teach you kind of that idea of how to work through those lesson plans and get a feel for, did supplemental work good for you, or is comprehensive a better fit? And also just to kind of explain the different parts of a lesson, some different strategies you could pick up if you don't have our materials that you could use with any materials you are already teaching. At Ballard & Tie, we have a very structured and systematic language development approach. So what that means is we explicitly target vocabulary as well as grammar forms and functions. So grammar forms are things like present tense, past tense. You're going to have adjectives, adverbs, but grammar functions is really how we get into that academic realm of language. So for example, naming things, describing likes and dislikes, or expressing feelings and emotions, all the way to maybe compare and contrast. We're going to also talk a lot about social as well as academic language. So obviously your newcomers need social language, but very quickly they'll need that academic language as well. We have a very balanced approach in all of our materials of reading, writing, listening, and speaking. It's the integrated skills approach. So even you'll see in our supplemental set of materials, when we just focus on listening and speaking, we really do reading and writing as well. But today's discussion is really going to be about supplemental or comprehensive. Which approach is best? Well, it's not really about which approach is best. It's which approach is best for you and your students and your classroom. What is the best fit is really what I want you to see today. We're going to start off with supplemental. Supplemental, the approach could be skill-based. So for example, with Frames for Fluency, it's listening and speaking. But some of you will have a reading program or a writing-based program or even a grammar-based program or a phonics program. And you might be honing in on a specific skill. Well, that's not going to be a comprehensive program, right? Because comprehensive means covering everything, basically. But supplemental programs are very good. They're very easy to implement. They're very light in nature. Those of you who like to create your own things and pick and pull, supplemental approach is really a great fit because then it allows you to do what you're already doing and add a little bit more. Or you find that little 15 minutes in a day and you want to just add a little bit in there. The supplemental approach also is better if you have only 15 minutes or 20 to 30 minutes, right? And comprehensive programs are just so large that you feel overwhelmed to cover everything. Supplemental might be the best approach for you. So those are some of the benefits and why you might want to use a supplemental program. With Frames for Fluency, though, the benefits are really the fact that you can continue what you're already doing or align it by thematic units, because we have thematic units. You could align it to what you're already doing by theme. You can do an alignment through grammatical forms and functions. Maybe they're struggling in plurals and you want to just align it there. But there are different uses and ways to align it. So let's look at what Frames for Fluency might look like. So what we're going to get is going to be from Unit 3, Chapter 1. Just to let you know on level, this is kind of a level 2, the starting point. The topic is really all about occupations. So you're going to see target vocabulary for occupations. Frames for Fluency also does allow for multi-level, but today I'm not going to get too much into that. I'm really going to cover more of the single level approach. If you would like to meet with me, we could always talk about multi-level, and I'll talk about it because I love multi-level. But anyway, you're going to see here target vocabulary. We believe a lot in images. We want you to present vocabulary through images. So you're going to see that we have picture and word cards. So in your packet, you're going to get these digital picture and word cards. They are images and also words. In our actual set of materials, though, they are paper-based. They're a little bit easier to put in pocket charts. But here you're going to see vocabulary. You might introduce vocabulary with pictures and then words, or you might ask them to make a sentence with hairstylist or barber or astronaut, right? But it's always great to first introduce the vocabulary, images for newcomers, a little bit higher level, you're going to introduce for words. Frames for Fluency can be K5, but for 6 to 12, it's definitely great for newcomers, your level 1s and 2s. So go over that vocabulary, use the images, connect them to the words if they're ready for it. And then you're going to move on to these different activities. We have one activity here, a second one in orange, a third one in blue, and continued on to the next page, you might have more of them, right? But let's look at this. It's a I do it, we do it, you do it approach. Not a lot of teacher preparation. You're going to have these sentence frames that you're going to pull out. I see blank, blank, I see 2 blanks. And then you're going to see the form, nouns, regular, plurals. So the focus here is on plurals. You're also going to be doing the function of naming people. We're going to look a little bit more closely at how to do this. So you might have a theme picture. This one is our older version of theme pictures. We have our newest version out. Here you'll see you can have access to both work. You're going to see people of different occupations, right? So I do it, we do it, you do it. You're going to talk about like, I see a doctor, I see 2 doctors. So I present that, we do it. I might talk to the students and say, You know, who do you see? I see a firewoman or a firefighter. I see, then plurals, 2 firefighters. And then you do it, then make sentences on their own. They can write it down if that's kind of where the student is, and then they could read it out to the class. The second activity is going to be about present progressive tense and describing actions. I don't want to go too much in depth into this because you are going to see an example of this. And then the last activity here is going to be about prepositional phrases describing location. Okay. We also have an extension here. So white snow, bright snow. We are going to be using this book, White Snow, Bright Snow in this lesson. So if you don't have this book, you can look for it in your local library or maybe find it on the internet somewhere to use in the classroom. But the whole point is that you are focusing on some kind of reading when it comes to frames for fluency. Okay, so in frames for fluency, in supplemental programs, please think about what skill you're targeting, whether it's listening, speaking, reading, or writing, or those other types of skills of grammatical form and function, or maybe phonics, right? So here you can see that with frames for fluency, you are focusing on grammar in context using that target vocabulary. You're also going to then have intervention for specific grammar forms and functions. So if, for example, I wanted to focus on plurals, you have a lesson here on plurals, but you also have many other lessons in frames for fluency just to target plurals. Now, I always say this, that this might be when, you've taught this 3 weeks ago. You've practiced it over and over, and students still aren't getting it. Go into frames for fluency. Focus just on a scope and sequence. This is a great way to use supplemental materials. Going back, listening and speaking is the focus of this program, but a little bit of reading and writing. But speak to write, right? That's very important. And then literature frames. The literature frames are really good. So you might use it with white snow, bright snow. Let's predict. Let's do a picture walk. What do we think this book is going to be about just by looking at the pictures? Or we could do something like first, second, third, finally, sequencing of events, or talk about the character or the main idea of the story. All right, well, we're going to come back to this and kind of see how it matches up in a second here. We're going to move on to our comprehensive program for K-5, Carousel of Ideas. So if you are in a K-5 classroom and you have a level 2-ish group student, the reason I kind of chose this one is because about now you should have students that are maybe ready for this in February. But the idea here is it's comprehensive in nature. It's a integrated skills approach. So you're going to have a full-on flow of activities for reading, writing, listening, and speaking. Generally, it starts with listening and speaking, then reading, and ends with writing. But even within it, you're doing a mix of skills. Now, the benefits of a comprehensive program. If you have time, comprehensive programs are the best way to go. Obviously, you can teach lessons from beginning to end. Make sure you hit all of the, integrated skills, and then you can definitely focus a little bit more on grammar, form, and function, vocabulary, all tied into the lesson. Now, Carousel of Ideas is our K-5 program. We're also going to look at later, just maybe briefly, the Champion of Ideas program for 6 through 12. I just want to say this now. If you are a 6 through 12 teacher and you want to see an in-depth lesson of Champion of Ideas after trying this one or before trying this sample lesson, we have a previously recorded webinar where I went over our chapter 9 about food with Champion of Ideas, and I spent the whole time on that one lesson. Okay, so let's look at Carousel. We're going to take a look at the teacher guide, and then I'm going to show you some videos of me actually teaching a student just to kind of help you visualize what it might look like in a one-on-one situation, or hopefully a bigger classroom, but the videos are just for one-on-one. All right, so in Carousel, we are going to look at Unit 3, Chapter 1. It's the same one that aligns to the frames for fluency that we just looked at. So the same type of vocabulary for occupations. You're then going to see that White Snow, Bright Snow book. And then, let me scroll a little bit here. We're going to look at Lesson 1. And we're going to look at actually the whole chapter and see kind of what it is and how it builds on top of each other. All right. At the beginning of every lesson, this is lesson 1, you're going to have a theme picture, right? Whether it's the old version, the new version, doesn't matter, but you're talking about images. So if you're thinking about strategies, please use images. Have students talk about images, whether it's pictures you just find, digital in nature, or you open up a magazine, but it's very easy for students to talk about images because it lowers the effective filter. All right, so this picture, do you see the scripting? Shows an accident on the street. You can see people in this picture doing many different jobs. So that's kind of how you would use this teacher guide. You could read through the scripting, or if you're like me, you start with the scripting and kind of go off and then come back to it. Just because I've been teaching for so long, it's a little bit easier for me to go off script. So you're going to see here what it looks like in action. So let me see. Here we go. Hi, my name is Brenda Adiva, and I have Saida here with me today. We are going to be modeling what a Carousel Unit 3, Chapter 1, Lesson 1, some activities might look like. Okay? All right, here we go. This is the presentation part where we're going to be talking about occupations. All right, Saida. This picture shows an accident on the street. You can see many people in this picture. They are doing many different jobs. Another word for job is occupation. Okay, let's write that on the board. So job and occupation. Can you repeat after me? Job.
Job.
Occupation.
Occupation.
All right, what are some jobs or occupations that you already know about? Here's some clues if you want to look at the picture.
A barber.
A barber, okay.
A fireman.
Fireman, yes.
A doctor.
A doctor.
A dentist.
Okay, a dentist, great. All right, so in this picture, the barber, hold on, yeah.
Also a teacher.
A teacher, good. What am I?
A teacher.
Is that my job?
Yeah.
And my?
Occupation.
Excellent job. All right, this is a picture of a barber or hairstylist. He cuts people's hair. Who cuts your hair?
A barber.
A barber or a?
Hairstylist.
Hairstylist, great. All right, over here, we have a mail carrier. What does a mail carrier do?
He brings everybody their mail.
Excellent, that's right. So, what kind of mail do we get?
Magazines.
Magazines.
Letters.
Letters. And other things, right. All right, what other occupations do you see in this picture? You can point if you want. That's the mail carrier, good. Who is that?
It's a doctor.
A doctor, good. How about one more? And what is that one?
A fireman.
A fireman, okay, excellent job. We're going to All right. So that was an example of, the presentation part of it. Next, we're going to talk about the practice section. So you're going to talk about, here's the doctor. Where's the doctor in the big picture? So kind of using two different images, one vocabulary word so they can see where that is. Also, you kind of want to talk about the occupation in general, kind of like what tools they're using or maybe, what they do in their job. Okay, so let's look at that. There we go. Okay, the next section is going to be the practice part of the section in the lesson, and it's going to be where the student kind of interacts with you. All right, so Saida, here's a picture of a
doctor.
Doctor, great. And where's the doctor in this big picture? Can you point to it? Okay, now let's look at it. What is the doctor wearing?
The doctor is wearing a white coat with a purple shirt.
Okay, great. And what is the doctor wearing here?
He is also wearing a white coat with the blue long sleeve under and with the green tie.
Okay, and do you see the tool that he has around his neck? Do you know what that's called?
A stethoscope.
Good. Do both doctors have them?
Yes.
All right, excellent. And do you see he's holding something? What is that called?
It's called an X-ray.
X-ray. So the doctor looks at the X-ray, or the doctor is looking at the X-ray, correct?
Mm-hmm.
All right, great. Let's try another one. This is a picture of a dentist. Can you find the dentist in the picture? Excellent. Okay, and can you explain what the dentist is doing in that picture?
He is looking into her mouth.
Excellent. All right. So let's try one more. What is this?
That's a mail carrier.
Excellent. And where's the mail carrier in the big theme picture? Excellent job. Okay, and what is the mail carrier doing?
Which picture?
Either.
He is giving the mail.
He is giving the mail out. All right. So you see in these pictures some males and females. They all can be mail carriers or doctors or dentists, right?
Or firemen.
Or firewomen, right? Excellent job. Okay, so there you saw kind of like talking about occupations. After that, you could pantomime the situation. I didn't really do that, kind of like a middle school, high school teacher. So I think you could do a better job of that as elementary teachers, and that would be really fun. You could also have students act out the different occupations as well. All right, we're going to move on to the apply and extend section. You'll notice here we're talking a little bit more now after schema building, right? A little bit more of that target vocabulary, but using it kind of with like a little bit more of grammar form and function. So things like the farmer is growing food. So present progressive tense. Okay, let's look at that. Here we go. Next, we are going to do the apply and extend section of this lesson. So Saida, this is a
farmer.
A farmer. And what is the farmer doing?
He's going to feed the cows.
He's feeding the cows. Good. The farmer is feeding the cows. So let me write that down. Is feeding the cows. Okay. We are going to then find another picture. What is this?
It's a mail carrier.
What is the mail carrier doing?
He's giving the mail.
Is giving the mail. And we'll put giving the mail out maybe. Okay?
They kind of look the same.
Good. All right. So what we are going to do next is partner it with Frames for Fluency. So in Frames for Fluency, you're going to have different activities that coincide with Carousel of Ideas. So the second activity, it says to use the picture and word cards, which we have, and we're going to be using the sentence frame to talk about present progressive tense, and we're going to be basically describing the actions. So apply and extend from Carousel of Ideas, and then we're going to move into Frames for Fluency so they match up together, okay? So let's try this. All right, Saida. So we saw this picture. The farmer is feeding the cows, right? That is going to be using this sentence frame. I'm gonna hang it up here on the board. Right. And with lower level students, you could always put the picture up. So the farmer is...
Do I put this?
Oh, no. What is the farmer doing?
Feeding the cows.
All right. So feeding the cows. All right. Let's practice another one. I'll let you pick any of these cards. Pick an occupation for me. Okay.
I'm going to choose a police.
Okay. So the police
is walking the dog.
Okay, but the policeman, right? Want to do the policeman? And then what is the policeman doing? The policeman is
walking the dog.
Walking the dog. Good. All right, let's try one last one. Pick one more. How about the fireman? The fireman? It's okay. You don't have to do the clown. All right. The fireman
is putting out the fire.
Good. Putting out the fire. Okay. Right. So if you had a higher level student, like maybe Saida, we could talk about what verb form we're using. So Saida, this is present progressive. Do you notice there's a verb, feed, walk, put? What are we putting at the end of it?
ing.
Good. So it's verb plus ing, right? Somebody is feeding the cows. The police is walking the dog. Okay? Thank you. Okay, so there you saw the activity from Frames for Fluency. It says right here, Carousel Teacher Guide 342. So that is how it aligns here to that Carousel page 342. And that is how an example of a supplemental program working with a comprehensive program. These were actually made to tie together. Not all supplemental programs are tied to comprehensive programs. I want to be very clear about that. But with this one, Carousel can be taught by itself. Frames for Fluency can be taught by itself, or you could even put them together to make it even better. So you'll find ways to kind of align your supplemental programs with what you're already doing, maybe a different comprehensive program, or maybe take our supplemental program and align it to your comprehensive program, or vice versa, use our comprehensive program and use your supplemental type of curriculum materials to align it. So just wanted to throw that out there that they do overlap, and they did overlap this time for present progressive tense. Just a little note, you might want to take the clown out. I mean, you saw Saida was a little fearful of clowns, but you know, she's in first grade. So that's kind of up to you. Here you'll see the occupation. They're going to talk about like, what else would you like to know? So if you could talk to that person, what would you ask about? So let's look at what that might look like. All right, and to end the apply and extend lesson, we are going to talk about one picture card. We can talk about the
ballerina
or the dancer and the
cowgirl and cowboy.
Cowgirl or cowboy. Okay, so what else would you like to know? Let's talk about one of them. Which one? Okay, why don't you ask me some questions about the cowgirl or cowboy?
Where?
I'm the cowgirl or cowboy.
Okay. Where were you?
Where am I? I am at my ranch.
What time?
What time? It is daytime.
I mean, like 3 a.m.
I get up at 6 a.m. when the sun comes up.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And how?
How what?
How are you? I mean, why do you need this?
Okay, that's called a lasso, and I am trying to catch the cow with the lasso.
It's a calf.
A calf. Okay, the baby cow. Excellent job. Okay, so let's talk about one more. This is a dancer. I think you know a lot about being a dancer, right? Okay, could we try to put some things on the board here about dancers? Okay, tell me, what do we know about dancers?
They perform sometimes.
Perform sometimes, yes. What else?
They wear costumes.
Wear costumes. What do they dance to?
They dance to music.
Dance to music. Can you name some different kinds of dance? Why don't you tell them what kind of dance you do?
I do lyrical, hip-hop, salsa, and I used to do ballet.
Good. All right. What else can you tell us about dancers? What do they wear on their feet?
They will, well, it depends what kind of dance, like jazz shoes or ballerina shoes.
Good. All right. So we're going to move on to lesson 2. Lesson 2 is going to be a whole nother day, possibly, right? Another 45-minute lesson. If you add frames into it, it'll be about an hour lesson. If you teach in 30-minute time frames, you could always split the lesson into 2, 30 minutes and 30 minutes, okay? So you're going to be using a different theme picture number 11, and you're going to talk about like costumes, you know, kind of moving on towards that different occupations that you'll see in this picture. You can also work with the picture and word cards again, like hand them out to people, like, is this the dancer, yes or no, or who has the astronaut, right? To just practice again the vocabulary words. In lessons towards the beginning, the lower levels, you're going to do a lot of reinforcement of commands, like give the book to the firefighter, give the pencil to the astronaut, trying to help them work with objects, but also the vocabulary. And after that, you're going to come back again to a grammatical form. So this one is going to be about singular versus plural. Now, if you recall when we went over the frames for fluency activity number 1, that one was about regular plurals, adding the S. So let's see what that might look like. Okay, we are going to be modeling a frames for fluency activity. Also we're going to be using part of the carousel corresponding lesson to do a little bit more direct instruction, okay? So first we're going to put a chart up on the board. It's going to be about singular and plural. This is a little bit talking about a grammatical form, but we're going to show in frames for fluency kind of how you practice with a student. Saida. Okay. So we have a singular column, Saida, meaning 1, barber, hairstylist, and astronaut. We're going to later make plurals for this, okay? So when you make a plural, you're going to put a S or a S sound at the end, okay?
Or ES or IES.
Excellent job. All right, so barber would turn into?
Barbers.
All right, and then hairstylist?
Will turn into hairstylists. It's kind of hard to say with an S.
Okay, how about astronaut?
Astronauts.
Excellent job. So I'm going to guess you can figure out by fireman what it would be.
Firemen's.
Firemen's or firemen? Which one sounds right?
Firemen.
Good. All right. So we don't add an S. That was a tricky one, huh? All right. How about police?
Policemen.
Policemen. So policeman turns into policemen. Farmer?
Farmers.
Good. Oops. Doctor?
Doctors.
Dentist?
Dentists.
Good. Cowboy?
Cowboys.
Cowgirl?
Cowgirls.
Excellent. Barber?
Barbers.
Excellent. Astronaut?
Astronauts.
Mail carrier?
Mail carriers.
Good. And then the one you didn't like? Clown?
Clowns.
Excellent job. All right. So now we're going to take the people side up. All right. And we're going to talk about who do you see? All right. So let me find my sentence frame here. Okay, ready? I see. Can you read that?
I see.
Okay, so let me show you. Here is a policeman. I see a policeman. Okay, let's try it. Your turn now. Ready? Who do you see, Saida?
I see a farmer.
Farmer. Excellent. One more time. I see
A dentist.
Excellent job. All right. Now, imagine that there's not just one, but how many?
2.
2.
Or
All right.
3.
Well, 2 or 3, but this one says 2. I see 2. Okay, hold on. Ready? Let's try this. So I'll do it. Ready? I see 2 barbers. All right. Now you're going to try. Okay. I see 2
astronauts.
Okay, so ready? Who do you see?
I see 2 astronauts.
Excellent. All right, let's try it all by yourself. Who do you see?
I see a dentist. I see 2 dentists.
Good. So I see 2 dentists and 1 dentist, a dentist. Excellent job.
Okay, so that's this this part right here with the chart and then moving into that frames for fluency activity. Then you would come back into Carousel and you can look at phonemes, so t sound, right? So here you can see some of that direct instruction where they're going to listen for the t sound or the r sound at the end of a word. So a little bit of phonemic awareness practice. Here we go.
Okay, next we are going to demonstrate a phonemic awareness activity out of Carousel of Ideas, Unit 3, Chapter 1, Lesson 2, the practice section. Okay, so here you're going to see the letter T, all right? So Saida, can you say T? All right, the letter T makes the T sound. Can you write the letter T for me? Okay, and what sound does that make? Excellent. Can you write the word aunt below, right here? Aunt. And if your students can't spell or write yet, that's okay. You could just read the words out and then you'll find the same sound. But foot. Bat. And the last word, cat. All right, excellent. So, aunt, foot, bat, cat. What letter do they all end with? What sound? T. And what sound does it make? T. Very good. All right, great listening to the T sound. All right, so we are going to try something here. Dancer, fireman, doctor, barber. Let's see. And then, are you listening? Yeah. Dentist. Mail carrier. And the last one is astronaut.
You didn't say clown.
Not the clown. All right. Which occupations or jobs have the t at the ending sound? Did you hear any?
Yes.
Which one?
Dentist.
Good.
Astronaut.
Excellent. Those 2. All right. Which one had the r sound? Like doctor? Farmer. Okay, can we find farmer? Good. Where's doctor? Doctor. And? Barber. So you can go over the t sound or the r sound. Male carriers. Great. And you're teaching students to categorize the ending sounds by using the picture cards. So another great way to use picture cards in this lesson.
Doctor.
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed some of the videos. I was just playing along with Saida there, trying to teach her. Just to let you know, she's a first grader. Obviously, she's not an EL student, but even then I had some activities that she can still interact with as far as grammar, vocabulary, to talk about it, to maybe even write about it, right? Okay, so the next activity that Saida would have loved is the occupation book, where students get to draw pictures of occupations, kind of label it, maybe even write some model sentences, and they can then do a little bit of art to then write, use images to then write, maybe even speak about it if they wanted to present that to the class. You're going to see here some worksheets that we have at Carousel. They are going to be included in your packet. So this activity is really talking about what does it end with, right? So what letter sound it ends with. All of our lessons have objectives, so please note that you are checking the objectives to see if they covered everything like the T and the R sound at the end, or they know their occupations. Okay, we're going to speed up a little bit more here through the lessons. We don't have any more videos, so we're just going to kind of concentrate on what it says here. You're going to see here the next section, lesson 3, is talking about like left, right, where things are in a picture. So for example, you might be doing prepositions of location, things like that. And just to remind you, frames for fluency, this activity coincides with that part of the lesson in Carousel. Okay, so again, a little bit more practice with where these people are as far as location. You might then do some riddles with them for the various occupations and kind of more of a deep dive into these occupations. Lastly, you're going to see here an activity sheet where we call it Reader's Theater. Students are going to be able to role play or read out a certain section of the Reader's Theater, and then definitely ask them questions as far as comprehension or practicing where something is to kind of reiterate what you were talking about and teaching them in lessons before. Okay. So lesson 4 is going to be back to the book, White Snow, Bright Snow. Again, remember in frames, you had a supplemental use of this book, but now you're going to see in lesson 4 in Carousel, a lesson that's more built out for 45 minutes. You're going to start with a poem called My Snow World. You're then going to have a read aloud. You're going to introduce it, really talk about the author, maybe do some prediction about the book, a picture walk. And then when you go over the book, you're going to see a lot of different questions to cover for that book. All right. And lastly, maybe some, let it snow, kind of what happened. And then you can answer the question by choosing just the image. So students don't need a lot of language to do this. All right. And then the book report, definitely you can help them through this. It's an academic task, a little bit more scaffolded. And then maybe write a poem about a snowflake. All right, continuing on, you're going to see lesson 5 talking about feelings. So how do you feel? How does the person in the picture feel? You're going to then practice these through the word and picture cards, looking at the picture, expressing what does that person feel based on what you see in the picture. How do you feel, right? And then you're going to talk a little bit more about another grammatical piece here, question marks or periods. More about feelings. All right, and then you're going to have another lesson here where you're going to be choosing an occupation. And if you could talk to a person of that occupation, what would you ask? What would you say? Then to later write. Here's a model of a letter. You're then going to then write your own letter. So there is always an ending with writing in all of our lessons. And you're going to see that there. Lastly, in every chapter, you need assessment, right? So you're going to have a listening and speaking assessment that you will have an assessment form, kind of like a rubric to fill out, and then a chapter test. So this chapter test will make sure they got the vocabulary and some grammar forms and functions, and maybe as they get higher, some reading and writing opportunities. They will have created a portfolio throughout that whole chapter, and you can talk about that portfolio and how they did with that student. Lastly, you're going to have sponge activities. So again, talking about the lettered sounds, the phonemic awareness, or you're going to talk about, other questions with some word cards. And then lastly, the theme picture. The theme pictures are really helpful in the program. You're going to see on the back side of these theme pictures a lot of listening, speaking, reading, and writing activities, and at the different levels. So if you haven't seen our theme pictures before, I encourage you to look at them. I encourage you to try them out with your class. Project the picture on the screen and read the back of the theme picture, or print it out and read from that. So here you'll see that comes along with this packet. So in summary, I hope that you will enjoy Carousel of Activities along with Frames for Fluency. Try out that sample lesson. And again, if you don't plan to move ahead with us in our curriculum, think about all the strategies that we just talked about and how to teach grammatical forms or functions or vocabulary. All right, we are going to cover briefly a comprehensive portion of 6 through 12, Champion of Ideas. With that Frames for Fluency teacher guide, remember it was about occupations. We now are going to look at Champion of Ideas in the platform really quickly. Champion is a paper-based or a digital program, or you can choose which one you do like, but there is a very scripted teacher guide. You're going to see here 25 50-minute class periods on just the chapter 4. I think we kept giving you just maybe lesson 1 so it doesn't feel so big. And lesson 1 is going to be about the reading Ask Eddie. And here you're going to see it's broken down into vocabulary. Do you see the same types like barber, carpenter, right? Like you're going to talk about occupations. So you just taught Frames for Fluency occupations, tying it into Champion of Ideas occupations may be a great, way to use both of them. But when you warm up, you're going to see every lesson starts with schema building. We're going to talk about occupations. You're going to use visuals to talk about those occupations. You're then going to ask questions, right? Talking about, and so then they'll see the capital letters and then the punctuation. So I might go into the reading, chapter 4. You're going to get a PDF of this, but just kind of showing you what the digital platform might look like. You would see this picture and the text. So let's talk about this picture. What is she doing? Who is she, right? And then you'll see I starts the sentence with a capital letter and then it ends with a period. But here, what should I do ends with a question mark. So you can go over grammatical areas as well while teaching that lesson. And then you're going to focus a little bit more on vocabulary. You're going to then introduce the vocabulary, but nouns, but also proper nouns. You're going to then have them talk about verbs or talk about verbs with them. And then contractions is another grammatical form. So you're going to see a lot of grammar within that, all as a precursor to then the reading. So now the reading comes out. We always start with pre-reading, no matter what reading it is. We then read the reading with the students, clarify meaning, ask them to paraphrase, ask comprehension questions. At the end of every reading are comprehension questions. Those will be included as well. And then lastly, you're going to have, oh, look, singular, plural again, right? So you covered that in Frames for Fluency, singular, plural. Here you have singular, plural again. You're actually going to cover adjectives of opposites and then main idea and detail. So every time there's a reading, there's always going to be something you pull out for reading skills. So main ideas, details, and then you're going to write a short letter. It's going to be basically a letter asking for advice is the purpose. Here you'll see all the scripting, right? So you are talking about an occupation, like who uses a hammer, who uses a carpenter, right? A carpenter uses a hammer. So then you're going to see here, you would open your book to page 36 and then talk again about that picture with that scripting in that teacher guide. You're going to then introduce, like I said before, like the grammatical part of it. You're going to continue with the vocabulary. So vocabulary, there are no picture and word cards for this program, but you can easily find them on the internet. Ask students to look for pictures. I always ask the older ones to get the pictures on their own because I don't want to be doing all the work, right? And that's really cool to look at. We also have a picture dictionary that has pictures embedded in that come with our program. But again, just to remind you, lots of grammar, right? Lots of grammar again, contractions, very important. And then some pre-reading. So I might show the reading again. I might say, okay, here's the title. What do you think we're going to read about? So here's prediction, right? Let's talk about the vocabulary words so you can look at the definition of the words. You're going to see here that there is a lot to go over with this reading. Lastly, there's going to be comprehension questions at the end of every reading. All right. And then you're also going to have some different things to try called activity sheets. So let me give you an example of that. So remember in schema building, we were talking about occupations like who uses a hammer or a carpenter uses a hammer. In activity 33, you're going to see here, a carpenter uses a hammer. She works in a bank. Great for schema building, but it's really about capital letters and ending punctuation. So here we're doing context, but also grammar, right? So they're going to rewrite the sentences. All right. Lots of great stuff in Champion. I really do advise you to try it, read through it, go through it. You're going to see here pulling out main idea and details. Another activity 36 where they're going to do that. So different pieces of the reading, pull stuff out, like they can read it side by side and, you know, do the questions on that PDF that we are providing you with. So lastly, writing is a huge part of this program. The writing process. Please, please teach the writing process. Pull out who, what, where, when, why. Include who, what, where, when, why in any of your writings. And that's going to be here in a model of the letter for asking advice. They're going to write their own letter, and then maybe they'll even edit a letter. Okay, so you could see here all the different writing skills, everything laid out for you, super comprehensive in nature. Frames for Fluency can be a supplement into Champion of Ideas like a bridge, or you can align them by theme. So just kind of summarize the flow of a lesson in Champion is always going to start with schema building, always some kind of vocabulary and context, grammatical forms, pre-reading to then read to then comprehension questions, but skill building, things like main idea and details, right? Then writing, there's going to be a letter that they write, an optional extend activity, like the editing of a letter. Now that we've talked about all our programs, I kind of made this chart just so you could see the comparison differences. We have Carousel of Ideas that we talked extensively about, comprehensive, with the supplemental program of Frames for Fluency for K to 5. But if you're 6 through 12, you can use Frames for Fluency for levels 1s and 2s into Champion of Ideas. That is the comprehensive program. You're going to have all the levels here. Again, K to 5 for Carousel, and then levels 1 through 5, so all proficiency levels. Reading, writing, listening, and speaking. There is assessment because that's a very important part of any comprehensive program. How long is a program? It's 4 years if you're teaching it 45 minutes a day. If you add on that 15-minute mark, it's about 60 minutes with Frames for Fluency a day for 4 years. There are some digital downloadable materials, and those theme pictures are digital for Frames for Fluency. Hands English is going to be a comprehensive program that I did not cover today. We actually sent out a free lesson plan for that around Valentine's Day. So if you are on a mailing list, please check out that one. It really did show the K1-2. It's kind of a slower approach to language, whereas Frames for Fluency, because it's K5, it's a little bit more of a slope. So Hands-on English is going to be comprehensive in nature. It's kindergarten through first, maybe second grade, levels 1s and 2s. Reading, writing, listening, and speaking again, so that is all there. And then you're going to have a 1-year program of taught 60 minutes a day, or 30 minutes, a 2-year program. This one has an e-port for the teacher, so it's a little bit more digital in nature, but again, Hands-on English, Carousel of Ideas, Frames for Fluency are more visually seen as kits. And you could see in those videos where I was pulling and kind of showing all the different things as manipulatives. Champion of Idea, however, you can see it as more like a textbook series. You'll kind of have it as like a digital platform that I showed you. The students will have their platform, or you can go paper-based completely, and that is up to you. Okay. Here's a picture of Frames for Fluency, Carousel of Ideas, Champion of Ideas, the 6th through 12th, Hands-on English for K1-2 newcomers. Our English mats that come with our Hands-on English program, really great for vocab to then speak conversational questions, to then speak to write about, tell a story, talk about a character, talk about a setting. We also do have proficiency tests, both in English and Spanish, listening and speaking, as well as reading and writing. I do want to say that our IPT proficiency tests do have a listening and speaking portion that after they take the test, there's a report that will tell them exactly what to concentrate on in Carousel if they're K-5, or 6 through 12 in Champion, or frames for fluency, what themes they need help with for vocabulary, or what kind of grammar form or function they need to work on. So our programs do work with this assessment platform. So if you already use WIDA or you use other types of assessment, this is a great addition to your programs just because it's so specific about what you can focus on and where in our curriculum. We are here for you. We are consultants. We have taught in the classroom. We would love to help you out and answer any questions or see what might be the best fit for you, whether it's a supplemental or a comprehensive program or both, or, you know, maybe anything else you're looking at for, like maybe an assessment program, IPT. Right, so there is my email address, beadiva@ballard-ty.com. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. If you are watching this video a little bit delayed and you didn't get the samples, please reach out to me for those as well. All right, I'm going to bring Emily back here so we can go over some Q&A.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Brenda, as always, for sharing so much information in such a short amount of time and for walking us through all these options and activities. As Brenda said, you are going to get these sample activities that she walked through, and we're going to send those out tomorrow in an email for you to download, as along with the recording, the slide deck, and your certificate of attendance. So keep an eye out for those materials tomorrow afternoon by email. All right, we do have a couple questions, so we'll just take as many as we can. So this educator is teaching at the high school level, but I think that the question is applicable to all levels. But what can core content teachers use to support the work of the EL teachers?
Okay, so our program is mainly for ELs, right? There's some content-based instruction. If you are looking at core content, so for example, ELA, right? That's a little bit simpler, right? In ELA, you're going to go over grammatical forms and functions. You're going to go over reading skills, writing skills. So in our programs, we have a really nice scope and sequence. You can look up the functions. So for example, if I wanted to do main idea and details, I can look up what chapter that would be taught in and take bits and pieces out of our comprehensive curriculum to make it more supplemental in nature. Again, frames for fluency is a great one for that. But for a content-based teacher, so for example, when I was teaching multi-level, those years, I actually taught a science class, a history class, etc. So the best thing is to communicate with your EL teacher. What are you focusing on, right? If I say, oh, in my class, I'm focusing on main idea and detail, or vice versa, right? In a science reading, in a social studies reading, there's still main ideas and details, right? So you can teach your students to find main idea and details in your core content classrooms, as well as your EL classrooms, and kind of make that overlap. In our K1 program, we have a beautiful, in hands-on English, beautiful scope and sequence. A lot of EL teachers just give that to their ELA teachers and say, okay, we're all focusing on the same things, and you might teach it a little bit out of order, but at least you're aligning to what they're working on in the core content classrooms.
That's helpful. I'm going to just sneak one more question in before we wrap up here. How do these curricula align with the science of reading? I know you mentioned phonemic awareness in one of the videos, and that's obviously a pillar of the science of reading, but if you want to touch on that a little bit.
So when I think of the science of reading, I think literacy. Obviously, you start with phonemic awareness, right? And you start at the word level when you're doing literacy. So vocab, helping them with word level, then phrase level. Definitely, obviously, right? The sentence frames with sentence level. And as they build, you're then going to get to paragraph, etc. So I think of that question as literacy. You are teaching literacy. We are not a reading program per se. I know there are a lot of reading programs out there. We aren't really concentrating on, you know, there's a reader. Students will read on their own. They'll then graduate to the next reading level. We are all about language development and how that connects with reading. And then, of course, reading skills, things like main idea, prediction, right? Summary, who, what, where, when, why.
Well, great. That time went quick. We have reached the top of the hour, so we'll go ahead and wrap up. And thank you again, Brenda, for being with us today. And thanks to all of you who took the time to join us. We appreciate all you're doing for your students during this time, and for taking the time to expand your knowledge with this professional learning webinar. Again, a final reminder that you're going to get that email tomorrow afternoon with a link to the recording and slide deck and to the sample lessons that Brenda shared. You can also visit ballard-tie.com to learn more about the programs and resources that Brenda reviewed today. That certificate of attendance will be included in that email. You'll want to scroll to the very bottom of it, look for the big orange button that says My Certificate. When you click on that, a browser window is going to open and some blue circles are going to spin, and they can spin for as many as 5 minutes. It can take a while for that certificate to load, but it will load, and once it does, you can download it and save it for your credentialing. All right, so thanks again for joining us. I hope everybody has a great rest of the day, and we'll see you again soon for another webinar.
Bye.